Welcome to the Turn One Studio podcast. I'm Elliot Custodio with Turn One Studio, and on this podcast, we sit with business professionals we know and admire. Today's guest is Kiki Orski from Peak Performance Consulting, and she's a business strategist. Kiki, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
All right. Well, business consulting, business strategist. What exactly do you do?
I work with teams who are not getting the results they could or should be getting because they're not working together. That's my prime passion in life, is to get people to work together collaboratively.
How often do business owners or operators realize that that's the problem that they're having, that they're not working together?
Interesting formation of your question, Elliot. How often do they realize? I'm not sure they realize it.
Okay.
Often enough.
Okay.
And that is my job, to help them see that. Oftentimes they think it's because people aren't following the rules, or there's not enough processes in place, or they don't have the best ideas.
Following the rules like it's a disciplinary solution?
No, following the structure that they've had in place for 20 years. Systems they've had in place for 20 years.
Okay.
So many times business leaders will think, well, if people would just follow what the systems we've had in place for 20 years, it would be fine. It's not always the case.
What is the common reason why following the systems isn't sufficient?
I think because we hire experts. We hire experts who are brought into organizations to do their very best work, to do what they've been trained to do, and it makes a lot of sense. But when they're not integrated into the culture of the organization, which is, yes, we hire experts, but we want all our experts to work together.
Okay.
I think that's where the fractures start to happen.
Do the experts lean towards their own creative ways? In other words, are they not following the systems because they disagree with them or think that there's a better way, being the expert?
I think they were hired to bring their expertise, so I think they want to show their best. They want to show their talent, their skills. Oftentimes it's what they've known from their company before, or it's what somebody has taught them.
Right.
And I believe sometimes these people come into organizations and say, well, you wouldn't have brought me if you didn't need something new or exciting.
Right.
But that's not always a change. We don't always need to change. Okay.
It's interesting that you said that, because you just threw off my next question. My next question was going to be along the lines of, is the company reluctant to acknowledge the need for change, and that's why they put these experts in a box of following old procedure. But there's a possibility they do think they need change and they don't actually need change?
If I understand your question correctly, yes.
Okay.
I don't think they always need change. Sometimes the systems and the processes that are there are perfect.
Okay.
Nobody's following them. So we hire somebody from the outside to get our people to follow the processes.
Okay.
Sometimes they really do need to be changed. I do a workshop, and I'll ask CEOs, what percentage of their policies, processes, and procedures you have right now do you believe are being followed 100% of the time like they were intended? What are some of the answers do you think I hear?
I'd hope that most would acknowledge that's almost impossible.
But what number? 10% not being followed, 50% not being followed?
We'll go with 50%.
I hear upwards of 80%.
80% not following.
Not being followed. So now we have organizations that have policies and procedures in place that are not being followed.
Okay.
But when you dive into why not, some of them could have been here for 40 years and they're not relevant anymore.
Right.
Some of them people didn't even know they existed because when they were hired, nobody taught them.
Okay.
Some of them are, people think they're just ridiculous.
Okay.
And they don't think they should do them. So there's so many reasons why people don't follow. So it's not that they need to be changed.
Yeah.
All the time. It may just mean that nobody knows they're there.
So awareness is a big issue.
Awareness is a big issue.
And I'm assuming that's a communication problem.
Oftentimes, that's what it comes down to.
Okay. So when you're working with a company that has these issues, where do you start?
We start with a bit of a discovery session.
Okay.
Before I even decide if we're a good fit
Okay.
And if they decide I'm a good fit for them.
Sure.
So we'll do a discovery session to kind of, peel away the onion. You've heard, right? Everybody wants to peel away the onion, but it's a really good analogy.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes what I'm brought to do initially has nothing to do with what they need.
Okay.
So once we do a discovery session and we start to really uncover what the problems are, the challenges, where the strengths are in a company, that's when we dive in and we find out the real root cause of some of the problems they're having.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the more common things that you come across? Culprits, I guess.
Yeah. So people thinking they can make the decisions for everybody in the organization without getting other people's buy-in, especially the people that are going to do the work. That is one of the biggest challenges I see.
Right. So not collecting their opinions, but getting their buy-in when a strategy is in place.
Both.
Both. Okay.
I mean, first, I would really love for people to gather. Imagine if you're the CMO, Elliot, in an organization, and I'm in finance, and I decide to buy a new program that's going to impact how you do work, but I don't get your feedback on the manufacturer.
We don't need Photoshop in this company anymore.
Right?
Right.
Yeah, so let's get rid of that expense.
Yeah.
And I think so getting people's thoughts and ideas ahead of time, and then once we make a decision, as we make the decision, getting their buy-in.
Right.
I think both of those pieces are important. So
Interesting.
that's one of the challenges, that thinking somebody can make the decision for everybody else. Not communicating clearly. Mm-hmm. I'll ask another question. What percentage of your communications in your organization is crystal clear?
Right.
I often get 0.
Sure.
Right?
And to me, that seems like the low-hanging fruit. Right. You may have the right solutions, but if you're not communicating with your team, it doesn't really matter how good your plan is, right?
Right on target.
Okay.
Yeah. You can have the best plan in place, but if people don't understand it, don't want it, don't see what's in it for them if they adopt it, you're just not going to get 100% buy-in.
Interesting. How receptive are people when they hear this?
How receptive are people?
Yeah. Do they tend to dig their heels in and go kicking and screaming, or are they open to, oh, wow, this is really a problem?
I think they're receptive to hearing that there's a problem because I think they know it.
Okay.
I think they're a little more resistant to the change that needs to happen in order to get better results.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
I agree with you. This is a problem. I don't feel like doing that solution.
I'm not going to do it. I don't
Okay.
want to. I don't have enough people. We don't have enough. Then we go into all the reasons why they can't.
Right.
So I think they're like, yeah, we don't talk here. Yeah, no, I don't know what's going on in the organization. They're like, okay, let's try something different. Well, I'm too busy. So I do hear that.
Is part of your method kind of triaging the issues and prioritizing what will move the needle, I would imagine?
Yeah, over the 25 years I've been in business, I have seen things that don't work.
Okay.
And I've also seen things that could work really, really well if we allow the people to weigh in on it.
Okay.
Right? People need to feel a part of the solution.
Right.
And oftentimes our front line knows exactly what needs to happen. They're driving home every day going, if somebody would just listen to me, this would be so much better. I think if we would just give people the time to weigh in, I don't think we'd have half the people being as resistant as they are.
Smart. What type of companies are ideal for you?
I have worked across all industry. I'm a bit industry agnostic. I've worked with retail, in food, I've worked with airlines, but healthcare is my passion. I'm
Is
a
that
nurse
right?
by profession.
Oh, okay.
But my husband would say, don't get hurt in front of me right now. It's been a very long time since I've done clinical nursing. But it is a passion project that I'm working on right now to dive more deeply back into healthcare to help make healthcare great again. Okay.
I'm going to ask a naive question here. How much of, because I'm curious about the business of healthcare, which is not my expertise. How much of the challenges in the business of healthcare are like quote unquote normal businesses or businesses that are not healthcare related versus things that are dictated by compliance or laws or rules? I always feel like healthcare is a very boxed in regulated entity?
It's a great question because if you were to ask people in healthcare, I think they would say, well, we're so highly regulated. We have so many rules and regulations. But if you look at the airline industry,
Same.
if you look at, manufacturing, government, they would say they're highly regulated too.
Okay.
And may I share a story?
Sure, of course.
So I was working with an airline, and we were doing their North America strategic plan. And I was at an airport. That's where we were meeting. And the executives were doing a breakout activity I had where they were working on their values. And they were all working in little pods, and I was sitting away from them. And I don't know what made me do it, but I couldn't hear them so well, so I closed my eyes. And I could hear them better. I wasn't distracted. And they started talking about we need the right people in the right seats. We're spending too much money on churn and burn with our employees in and out. Nobody's watching the expenses. And I realized that those are the exact same problems that I was having in my hospitals that I was consulting with, in the retail that I was consulting with. So the problems are not necessarily industry specific.
Business is business.
Business is business. Right? You have the same things going on. Granted, in healthcare, we're doing the most important job on earth, which is taking care of somebody's loved one.
Sure.
But I'm sure if I was working with the airlines, they would say we're doing the most important job on earth, keeping people safe in the sky.
Right.
Automotive industry, keeping people safe on the road.
Right.
We all do some really important work, and we all have people, and we all have a service that we provide, and we all have to do it fiscally responsibly. So I think business is business.
Yeah.
In healthcare, we don't always call it a business. Years and years ago, we resisted the idea that healthcare is a business.
Right.
But it is.
That probably challenged that idea of healthcare being business at the time, probably challenged the idea of helping people versus doing something for profit, right?
I'll even share with you that when I was in nursing school, and I'm not going to tell you when that was.
Fair enough.
When I was in nursing school, it was a big thing we changed over to, instead of the patient, when you take an intake on a patient, they do their admission history, instead of saying the patient complains of, at my time, it was the client complains of. And we got such pushback the years that I graduated college, the nurses that graduated at my time, such pushback. They're not our clients, they're our patients. So it was so interesting.
Yeah, it's that labeling of monetary value that makes it icky.
Yeah, which is so unfortunate because once we're a really well-run business, then we're generating the income we need in order to get more staff, get the right reinvest, get the software we need.
Yeah.
So we need to run a really good business. And yet we still think it's icky. It drives me crazy.
So people talk about how difficult it is to find good talent, how difficult it is to retain good talent. What pearls of wisdom can you share if someone's looking to hire now to find the right person and keep them?
There's an old saying that says people don't leave jobs, they leave their managers.
I've heard that.
Right? You've heard it for years and years. And I believe that though it may not be exactly their manager that they're leaving, but I think there's some truth to that statement.
Sure. The relationship is key.
The relationships.
Okay.
Not only with their manager, but with everybody around them.
Right.
I think if we were to listen, if people would realize that their voices are valued, if they would be able to make that connection that their work is important to the mission and vision and values of the organization, if we in leadership would help make that connection, I think it would be a little bit easier to retain people. Because no matter what industry you're in, there's talent going somewhere, and chances are the job that someone's going to leave to is going to be the same position, just in another building with another name.
They're repeating the same thing.
They're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So they're going somewhere else, and I believe that leadership has a lot to do with keeping people by making sure they feel valued, making sure they understand how they contribute to the mission, vision, and values of what they do.
Right.
I really believe that.
That makes sense. I have a question for you for solopreneurs looking to make, let's say, their first hire. Right? Some of them may be watching this right now. I've heard two schools of thought. Maybe there's a third, fourth, I don't know. But two viewpoints on what I'm about to ask you, and I'm curious how you feel about it. I should hire someone that does what I do so I can get that off of my plate, versus I should hire someone that does the things I don't do to add more, however you want to describe it, better round out my business or fill in deficiencies. Where do you think I should go, that individual, for making their first hire?
I would love to dive more deeply into the business, but if I was
Sure.
going to answer
I know it's a
that-
very personal to the business question.
Yeah, but if I was going to answer that, the first response would be, I want you to work in your zone of genius.
Okay.
I want you to do the things you love to do, no matter what position you're in.
Okay.
And as a CEO, as a solopreneur CEO, you probably got to your position and to the level of success you're at because of a number of things you could do really, really well, right? Bootstrapping it as a solopreneur. As a solopreneur, I've done that.
Right.
I've done a lot of things I probably shouldn't be doing.
Sure.
So I think my advice would be hire somebody complimentary.
Okay.
Hire somebody complimentary. Keep doing the things you love to do and you're really, really good at. And bring in somebody who's really good at something else, where you complement each other really well. That's what I believe, if it was only going to be two of us.
Okay, that makes sense.
I love doing what I do, and I don't think I'd want... And I think when people hire me, they hire me for me. They don't want that bait and switch. I come and I sell to you, and you think you're getting me, and then I bring somebody else in to do my work.
Sure.
I wouldn't want that to happen.
See, I kind of go both ways on that. I agree with what you're saying. When I think about scaling my own business, I brought some people on that do the things that I do. I brought someone on that does stuff that I didn't want to do anymore. That wasn't most appropriate for me, right? As I'm trying to focus more on the business versus being in the business. I think that it's just a natural progression when you scale a business that while I might be orchestrating the strategy behind what I'm proposing to do for your business, in order to do it the best way, the most time-efficient way, I need to utilize my team where appropriate. So there are going to be certain tasks that I may not personally handle. And I only see that expanding more as the business grows, right? If I bring on more people that do more of these things, I would be doing less of those things. I find it interesting because I think it's safe to say, we all start our business because we enjoy doing the thing that we enjoy doing, like you mentioned. And if you're interested in scaling the business, it seems as if it's almost inevitable, and I'm okay with this for me, it's almost inevitable that there's going to be a time when I'm not doing the things that I enjoy doing in the business because, again, I'm focused on running the business. So I have to have people in place to do those things.
I appreciate what you're saying, and I agree halfway.
Okay.
Because there's going to be that certain magic, Elliot, that only you can bring. Now, having a couple of mini-me's, if you were to hire 2, 3 people, depending on the size of your business, absolutely. You're not going to be the one who's in front of the camera, even though you're amazing at that, and who's going to... But I guess I wouldn't want the business to lose your special touch.
Sure. Well, I guess using that example, and thank you for the compliment, using that example, though, I could see myself being on camera more than being behind the camera, right? And right now, I enjoy doing both. I love everything technical with AV. But it would make more sense in the growth of my business as I market my business, and I am a element of that marketing for the business, to be on this side of the camera more and on that side of the camera less.
In that case, absolutely. So that person you're hiring has similar skills.
Yeah.
But you're going to accentuate their skills behind the camera, and your magic stays here.
Yeah. But I'm acknowledging that I enjoy pushing those buttons, and I will be pushing less buttons. But I also enjoy business. And I understand, at least it's my perception as I envision what business growth looks like into the future that I'm doing less of that. But because I enjoy business, I'm okay with that.
It's a challenging situation. I've coached people in the past, for example, a baker. Imagine somebody who owns a bakery, and they own their bakery because they love to bake.
The E-Myth. Do you ever read the E-Myth?
Oh gosh, yes, many years ago.
Yeah, I think that's a baker is the analogy that they use.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I actually had a baker.
Did you really?
Somebody who was opening a
That's
restaurant.
awesome.
And they were so distraught because they had no time to be doing the things they love, which is getting their hands into the dough.
Yeah.
And there they were doing their books. There they were marketing and making phone calls and cleaning up at night and then trying to fix an oven. And it was frustrating because they weren't doing what they loved.
Right.
So in that particular case, you kind of need to do both. You need to...
Right, because that may not be sustainable. They may burn out because bookkeeping is not as fun as making pies.
Exactly. So go where your brilliance is. But however, if the orders start coming in, they're not going to be the only one that's baking.
Sure.
So you're going to have to hire more bakers. And so that's why I said initially, it depends on your business. But I sometimes feel that solopreneurs will step away from their magic and what they really love to do and hire somebody that does what they do and allow them to do that. And then they start to shine a little less.
Yeah.
And
Makes
that makes
sense.
me sad. That makes me sad. So.
Well, perfect segue. If we're talking about a book, tell us about yours.
Smash the silos. So if I was asked one time, I was asked 1,000 times, how do we do this better, Kiki? Well, because I would work with vertical departments.
Okay.
And what kept coming up over and over again is that we're doing great vertically, but pockets of excellence, one department doing really, really well, is not good for an organization.
Okay.
It's just not good enough. And when I realized that there was so much goodness in these verticals, they just need to go horizontal, is when I started realizing that if we could just get horizontal leadership and break those silos, which are those invisible barriers that prevent mission-critical information from getting back and forth from department to department, the whole organization could do better. And that's how this book started. Smash the silos.
That's awesome. That makes a lot of sense. So that happens all the time.
Oh, more often than you.
What do you think is the biggest reason why one department's not talking to another?
I think it goes back to the same reason why we hire experts.
Okay.
Right? Everybody holds on to their information thinking not everybody. Let's see, I'll give you a bunch of reasons. Reasons why silos are allowed to exist in organizations. Sometimes people feel that if I have the information,
I'm valuable.
I'm safe, right? I'm the go-to person. Or if I share information and it's not really good, people will judge me.
Okay.
So examples just like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of
Who's
sense.
going to listen to me? I'm just a little department here. When there's such great information within these verticals, and if we would just do it horizontally, everybody could. A rising tide lifts all boats. You've heard that.
Yeah.
I have analogies for everything. It could be so much better if we would.
Do you encounter a lot of imposter syndrome within departments? Because I always think of that as more of a top of the org chart visionary type problem, but you said something a moment ago that made me think that that's also an issue within departments.
Oh, I think it's within individuals at all levels.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's just for C-suite people to have imposter syndrome. No, I see it at every level. I see it when I coach people. I see it in myself sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a natural thing. Okay. So leadership aside, what do you like to do for fun?
I love to dance.
Oh, very nice.
I'm a dancer at heart.
Competitive or just recreation?
Okay, so you want to know a little bit more about
There's
me?
a story. Okay.
I'm actually technically, I guess I got paid to dance once. So once you get paid once,
You're a professional.
But it's Polish dancing.
Really?
Yep. I competed in Polish dance festivals. I was Miss Action Park.
Like Action Park, like it used to
Vernon
be.
Valley.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh yeah. But I love to dance. I love Spanish dancing. I love waltzing. I love classic dances. I will learn anything. I will dance with anyone who asks me. And if nobody asks me,
Wow.
I'll go ask them.
Okay.
I love to dance.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
You know, there's a movie, I haven't seen it. There's a documentary on Action Park.
Oh my God.
And like how crazy,
How people die on
how they found like teeth inside some of the water tubes because it just wasn't built in a safe way. Maybe that's the next podcast.
I should probably rethink my examples.
That's a great example. Well, this was awesome. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
This is great.
Thank you.